Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
Darkness does not always come from the sky. Sometimes it rises from the mountains, in the heart of the Andes, where the air is thin and the earth itself seems ancient and alive. There is a name that still silences entire villages. Pishtaco, not a spirit, not a myth, not a demon in the way the world understands demons, but something that walks, something that hunts, something that has been feared for more than 500 years. Even today, travelers vanish in these mountains. Even today, bodies are found drained, altered, incomplete. And the locals do not ask who did this. They ask only one question. Did the Pishtaco return? This is not a legend born from imagination. It is a narrative forged in blood, colonial trauma, and a fear that refuses to die. The first records appeared during the Spanish conquest. Men dressed in foreign clothes arrived with weapons, crosses, and a hunger that went far beyond gold. They killed, they dismembered, they boiled bodies, and they took the fat. Indigenous witnesses believed that human fat was being harvested to oil weapons, to treat leather, to power machinery, and later to sell across the ocean. Pishtaco comes from Quechua roots associated with cutting, slicing, and extracting. A Pishtaco is not simply a murderer, it is a predator of substance. It takes what sustains life, fat, energy, essence. Over centuries, the description evolved, but the core remained. A tall figure, often pale, sometimes bearded, sometimes wearing the clothes of authority. A priest, a soldier, a doctor, an engineer, a stranger. The disguise changes. The function does not. It approaches isolated people. It offers help. It asks for water. It pretends to be lost. And when the moment is right, the body is found days later, sometimes without organs, sometimes with precise incisions, sometimes with no blood at all. Official reports speak of accidents, of animal attacks, of exposure, but the wounds do not match. The villagers know. This is not nature. This is harvesting. Modern police archives in Peru and Bolivia contain cases classified as unsolved homicides with surgical patterns inconsistent with known criminal behavior. Victims show removal of adipose tissue with minimal external damage. No signs of struggle. No defensive wounds, as if the body was disabled before it could resist. And this is where the legend becomes something else. Not folklore, but a methodology. In the late 20th century, rumors spread that government agents, doctors, and even international organizations were secretly extracting fat from rural populations. Why? Because fat is not only tissue, it is biochemical fuel. It contains hormones, energy reserves, and compounds used in medicine, cosmetics, and industrial processes. A disturbing question emerges. What if the Pishtaco never disappeared? What if it evolved? Military research documents from the Cold War era reveal classified studies on human tissue utilization. Ethical boundaries were crossed in the name of science. And in isolated regions, oversight does not exist. Disappearances continued. The Andes are vast. Mountains hide everything. And silence is easy to enforce where poverty and distance isolate communities. Witnesses describe vehicles with no plates, men with medical equipment, people posing as aid workers. And then, nothing. Only rumors, only fear, only another name whispered at night, Pishtaco. But there is something even older than the colonial version. Pre-Incan mythology speaks of mountain entities that feed on human essence, not blood, not flesh, but vitality, a form of spiritual extraction. The body remains, the life is gone. This suggests that the legend is not a response only to colonial violence, but to something far more ancient, something embedded in the landscape itself. The Andes are not passive mountains. They are alive in the cosmology of the region. They are beings, and beings can hunger. Some anthropologists believe the Pishtaco is a cultural memory of real predatory groups that specialized in body harvesting. Others argue it is a psychological weapon, a manifestation of historical trauma. But trauma does not leave surgical marks, and it does not explain the modern forensic anomalies. In 2009, a police operation in Peru, known as Operation Eclipse, publicly claimed to dismantle a gang accused of extracting human fat to sell on the black market. The announcement shocked the nation. International media reacted then. Days later, the government retracted the statement, declared it false. No evidence, no such group. The files were sealed, the witnesses silenced. The investigators reassigned. The fear remained. If it was a lie, why erase it so completely? And if it was true, what was being protected? Every legend has a function. Some teach, some warn, some conceal. The Pishtaco does all three. It warns the traveler. It teaches the child to fear the unknown. And it conceals a pattern of violence that has adapted across centuries. Look at the geography. Remote mining zones, isolated construction projects, hydroelectric expansions, roads cutting through ancient land. Where there is extraction of resources, there are also stories of extraction of bodies. And where there are stories, there are often bodies. Never counted, never investigated, never named. The Pishtaco is not a monster under the bed. It is the shadow of exploitation. It is the echo of a system that consumes. And the Andes, remember. The mountain paths still hide bones. The villages still lock their doors at night. And the word still carries power. Because fear survives when truth is incomplete. And something, somewhere in these mountains, continues to take. Not because it is supernatural, but because it is permitted. And that is far more terrifying. Would you walk alone through these roads after hearing this? Could you accept help from a stranger in these heights? Would you trust a uniform, a badge, a medical coat, in a place where oversight does not exist? The Pishtaco does not need claws. It only needs access and silence. And as long as the Andes remain vast and forgotten, this legend will never die. Because some myths are not meant to disappear. They are meant to warn. There is a detail that rarely appears in tourist guides, academic summaries, or official history. The Pishtaco is not described as savage. It is described as precise. The cuts are clean. The removal is efficient. The damage is calculated. This suggests not rage, but purpose. Not ritual, but procedure. Several forensic analysts who have examined bodies from remote Andean regions describe patterns similar to medical harvesting techniques, incisions aligned with vascular pathways, minimal tissue destruction, extraction focused on fat-rich areas. This is not how an animal kills. This is how a professional works. And this is where the fear deepens, because it implies training, knowledge, infrastructure. The Pishtaco, in this context, is not one entity. It is a system, a moving operation hidden behind uniforms, institutions, and projects that appear legitimate. Road construction teams, medical expeditions, mining assessments, environmental surveys. Each one provides access. Each one provides cover. Each one provides a reason to be there. And when people vanish, the explanation is always the same. Accident, migration, criminal violence, nature, never extraction, never harvesting, never Pishtaco. Local testimonies collected over decades show a recurring detail. Victims often reported being dizzy, weak, or disoriented shortly before disappearance. Some spoke of strange injections, others of drinks offered by strangers. Some remembered a sharp smell, others a sudden heaviness in the body. Chemical sedation, anesthesia, the kind used in controlled environments, not in wilderness attacks. And yet, no official connection is ever made, because to acknowledge it would require admitting something far more disturbing, that the threat is not hidden in the forest. It moves through society. It carries documents. It signs papers. It wears authority. The Pishtaco has adapted to the modern world. In digital age, new testimonies appear in forums, in anonymous reports, in messages that disappear days later, images of abandoned equipment, vehicles without identification, medical waste found in mountains. Each post is dismissed. Each account is buried. Each witness is isolated. But the pattern remains, and patterns do not lie. Some researchers argue that the Pishtaco phenomenon represents a form of biopiracy, the illegal extraction of biological resources from vulnerable populations. Human bodies become commodities, fat becomes material, life becomes inventory. And in places where poverty is extreme and oversight is weak, this trade is almost impossible to trace. The legend, then, is not superstition, it is social memory, a warning encoded in fear. The Andean communities do not fear monsters. They fear systems. They fear being consumed. And they fear that no one will listen, because when they speak, the world calls it folklore. But folklore does not leave surgical scars. Folklore does not require refrigerated transport. Folklore does not demand secrecy at institutional levels. The Pishtaco is not ancient in the way ruins are ancient. It is ancient in the way exploitation is ancient. It changes its face. It changes its language. It never changes its hunger. And perhaps the most terrifying aspect is this: you may never see it. You may never know it passed. You may never realize you were close. Because it does not announce itself. It does not roar. It does not chase. It offers help. It offers work. It offers medicine. And it takes silently, cleanly, efficiently. So the next time you hear the word Pishtaco, do not imagine a creature from legend. Imagine a process. Imagine a network. Imagine a shadow that moves through reality, not fantasy. And ask yourself, how many stories were silenced to protect it? How many bodies were never counted? How many truths were buried under the mountains? Some legends exist to entertain. Others exist to survive. This one exists to warn. And in the Andes, the warning is still alive. The Pishtaco is not gone. It is only unseen. And that is why it remains dangerous.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.